What started as a normal political exchange on live TV quickly turned into something no one saw coming. Tension filled the air as a bold question was thrown across the table, sharp, unexpected, and designed to challenge. But in just seconds, everything flipped. The studio froze. The audience gasped. A single savage comeback silenced the room and left jaws on the floor. What was said, and how did it leave even the host without words? Stay tuned. This is one moment you won't forget. Live television has a unique power. Unlike pre-recorded shows where anything uncomfortable can be edited out, live TV brings raw, unfiltered moments right into people's homes. These moments are not just watched, they're experienced in real time. That's exactly what happened during a recent episode of a popular political talk show, where something unexpected turned a normal discussion into an unforgettable event. The show was moving along as usual. The host and the guest were discussing issues that often come up in political debates, topics people care about, but also topics that sometimes lead to strong disagreements. It was the kind of setting where people expect back-and-forth conversation, maybe even some raised voices, but nothing too unusual. However, that expectation was quickly shattered. As the conversation progressed, the host made a pointed remark. It wasn't necessarily loud or rude, but it carried a certain tone, a tone that many viewers could recognize as dismissive or sarcastic. This is not uncommon in political shows, especially when two strong opinions clash. But what happened next wasn't common at all. The guest did not get flustered. There was no visible sign of irritation or panic. Instead, they paused, looked straight ahead, and then delivered a comeback so sharp and well-timed that it instantly changed the mood in the studio. The host, who is known for controlling the conversation, appeared momentarily silent. That silence spoke volumes. This single moment, less than a minute long, grabbed everyone's attention. The comeback was not loud, not insulting, but it was precise. It was based on facts, logic, and clarity. It was the kind of response that does not just answer a question, but flips the entire conversation. Everyone watching could tell something different had just happened. The audience, which had been quietly following the dialogue, suddenly reacted. Gasps, laughter, applause. It wasn't just entertainment anymore. It was history being made on live TV, right in front of their eyes. The real lesson here lies in understanding what made this moment unforgettable. It wasn't just the words used. It was the calm control of the speaker. When someone is put on the spot, the common reactions are either to fight back emotionally or to shrink under pressure. But here, neither of those things happened. The guest stayed grounded, responded with intelligence, and most importantly, didn't lose focus. That kind of response takes more than just confidence. It takes preparation, self-awareness, and an ability to think clearly under stress. Another thing that made this live TV moment powerful was that it broke the usual pattern. Viewers expect arguments, jokes, or maybe a dramatic walk-off. What they don't always expect is a moment of absolute clarity, when someone says something so meaningful that it stops the whole room. In this case, the comeback worked not because it was loud or angry, but because it was undeniable. It revealed something true, in a way that couldn't be argued against. In a world where people often shout over each other to be heard, this moment was a clear example of how silence and timing can sometimes be more powerful than volume. The guest waited, listened, and then responded, not just to prove a point, but to teach something. The audience understood this instinctively. Their shocked reaction was not just to the content of the words, but to the way they were delivered. It's a rare skill to be able to shift the entire energy of a room with one sentence, but that's exactly what happened. After the broadcast, clips of the moment quickly spread online. Social media users replayed it, commented on it, and shared it widely. People called it everything from a masterclass in debate to the moment the show flipped. But beyond the headlines, what really stood out was how one person, in one moment, used the pressure of live television to make a bigger point. That moment reminded everyone watching that being clear, calm, and confident, even when being challenged, is a skill worth learning. Live TV gave the world a rare lesson that night. It showed that when someone stays focused, holds their ground, and responds with a strong message, they don't just win the argument, they change the conversation. In political conversations, especially on live television, tension is part of the experience. People expect strong opinions, pointed questions, and even moments of disagreement. But what often separates an ordinary guest from someone unforgettable is how they handle those high-pressure situations. During one such moment on live TV, a political figure showed exactly what it means to turn tension into a teaching moment. The conversation had taken a sharp turn, with the host presenting a challenge that seemed intended to put the guest in a difficult position. The tone was firm, even slightly dismissive, as if expecting the guest to back down or become defensive. But instead of reacting emotionally, the guest leaned into the moment with calm control and delivered a comeback that instantly grabbed everyone's attention. This comeback wasn't just a clever line or a quick reply. It was a response filled with insight, clarity, and strength. It made clear that the guest was not only prepared, but also deeply aware of the subject being discussed. Instead of sidestepping the issue or trying to change the topic, the guest tackled the comment directly, using facts and clear reasoning. The words were measured, but they carried weight. There was no shouting, no insults, just a confident response that turned the tables on the conversation. What made this comeback powerful wasn't just the delivery, it was the way it shifted the balance of the discussion. In that moment, the guest took control of the conversation without overpowering anyone. That is a rare skill in public dialogue, especially when the pressure is high and the cameras are rolling. It was a reminder that strength in communication doesn't come from volume or aggression, but from the ability to respond thoughtfully under pressure. The reaction in the studio said it all. People who had been quietly observing began to respond, some with applause, others with surprised expressions. There was a shift in the energy of the room. The audience, which had likely seen many debates before, recognized that something different had just happened. A line had been drawn, and the guest had crossed it with clarity and confidence. This kind of response teaches an important lesson. When people feel cornered in a conversation, especially in front of a crowd, they often feel the need to defend themselves quickly or emotionally. But a well-timed comeback, one that is based on truth, logic, and emotional control, can do far more than just defend. It can educate, inspire, and shift public perception. That's what happened in this moment. It wasn't just a reply, it was a demonstration of leadership. The guest used the opportunity not to fight, but to inform. They turned the host's challenge into a springboard for deeper discussion, highlighting not only their point of view but also exposing weak points in the opposing argument. This wasn't done with arrogance or personal attacks. It was done through respectful, assertive language that left little room for rebuttal. The host, known for steering conversations with confidence, paused, perhaps surprised by the strength of the reply. That pause added even more weight to the guest's words, reinforcing the power of what had just been said. For viewers watching at home, the moment was striking. Many may have expected the guest to stumble or lose momentum under pressure. Instead, they witnessed someone who stood firm, communicated clearly, and used their voice to reset the tone of the conversation. That kind of presence is not easy to maintain on live television, where every second counts and there is no chance to edit or retry. It takes preparation, emotional strength, and deep understanding of the topic at hand. In public speaking, such a moment is often referred to as a turning point. It's when the person speaking moves from reacting to leading. In this case, the guest took that moment and transformed it into a clear message that not only answered a challenge, but also raised the level of the entire discussion. The impact wasn't just felt in the studio, it echoed across social media and online discussions where clips of the exchange were shared and debated. This wasn't about winning an argument. It was about showing how a powerful comeback built on respect and reason can cut through tension and leave a lasting impression. The guests didn't just respond, they educated, they challenged assumptions, and they reminded everyone watching that leadership is often shown most clearly in moments of pressure. On live television, the smallest moments can have the biggest effect. A single sentence said at the right time can change the direction of a conversation. During one such broadcast, a political guest delivered a reply that caught everyone off guard, not because it was loud or rude, but because it was bold, unexpected, and perfectly timed. This wasn't just any kind of comeback. It was the kind that makes people stop and listen, the kind that makes even a confident host hesitate before speaking again. What happened in that moment was not just surprising, it was powerful. The discussion had been moving fast. The host, known for a sharp style and quick wit, had asked a question or made a comment that many would consider difficult to respond to. It might have been meant to challenge the guest's viewpoint or even embarrass them in front of the audience. The atmosphere was tense, but still within the normal flow of a political talk show. However, what came next was anything but normal. Without raising their voice, the guest delivered a comeback that immediately changed the tone in the room. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It wasn't rehearsed or forced. It was natural, clear, and packed with meaning. No one expected such a calm and calculated reply, especially not one that flipped the entire moment on its head. The words hit with impact, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. They didn't just answer the challenge, they made the challenge itself look weak. What made the comeback even more impressive was how controlled and focused it was. Often on live TV, people respond quickly to pressure with emotional or defensive comments. But this response was different. It showed thought, preparation, and a deep understanding of the topic. It wasn't just a clever line, it was a message. A message that said, "I'm not here to play games. I know what I'm talking about and I'm ready to defend it." The audience could feel the shift. At first, there was silence. Then the reactions began, a mix of gasps, laughter, and even applause. It was clear that something special had happened. People in the room and those watching at home recognized the moment for what it was, a rare, honest moment of confidence and clarity under pressure. It was unexpected not only because of the words spoken, but because of how much control the guest had in a situation that could have gone the other way. This kind of moment doesn't happen often. In most televised debates, there's a back-and-forth pattern. One person talks, the other responds. There might be some tension or disagreement, but it usually stays within expected lines. But when someone breaks that pattern with something truly original and sharp, the whole conversation changes. That's what happened here. The comeback didn't just respond to the host's comment. It took the conversation in a new direction. It made people think differently. It made the host pause and the audience react. That's the power of surprise in communication. From an educational point of view, this teaches something very important. When people prepare for public speaking or debate, they often focus on facts and talking points. But what's just as important is the ability to stay calm when something unexpected happens, and to respond in a way that feels both real and powerful. The guest in this moment showed exactly how to do that. They didn't try to win by shouting louder or interrupting. They won the moment by using timing, tone, and truth. It also highlights the value of confidence that comes from knowledge. This wasn't a random comeback, it was rooted in experience and understanding. That's why it worked so well. Because even though it was surprising, it wasn't out of place. It fit the moment perfectly. The audience didn't just hear the words, they felt the meaning behind them. And that's what made it stick. In live discussions, especially with strong hosts, guests can often be pushed into a corner. But every so often someone comes prepared enough and calm enough to turn the moment around. The comeback delivered that night wasn't just smart, it was strong. It reminded everyone watching that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is the thing no one sees coming. And when it's said with confidence and truth, it doesn't just surprise. It stays in people's minds long after the cameras stop rolling. When something truly unexpected happens on live television, the first people to react are the ones sitting in the studio audience. They don't have time to think about how they should respond. Their reactions are natural, honest, and immediate. That is what makes their response such an important part of understanding the power of a live moment. During one particular broadcast, a single comeback changed the whole energy in the room. It wasn't just the words that caused a reaction. It was the way those words were delivered, the timing, and the truth behind them. The audience didn't just hear it, they felt it. At first, the room was quiet. People were paying attention, following the conversation between the host and the guest. It was a typical setup for a political discussion, fast-paced, opinionated, and at times a bit tense. The host, known for asking tough questions and pushing the limits of comfort, threw out a statement or question that seemed meant to challenge or even embarrass the guest. For a few seconds, there was a feeling of pressure in the air, like something important was about to happen. Then came the comeback. It was not loud. It was not angry, but it was clear, direct, and impossible to ignore. The words were chosen carefully. They didn't just respond. They redirected the conversation entirely. There was truth in the message, and that truth landed with force. That is when the silence in the room shifted. People who had been sitting still leaned forward. Faces changed. Some eyebrows raised. And then the sound started. Gasps, laughter, and applause, all happening within seconds of each other. That reaction from the audience was more than just a show of support. It was a signal that something meaningful had occurred. These were not just viewers. They were participants in the moment. Their surprise and amazement added to the impact of the reply. It's one thing to deliver a strong message, but when the people in the room physically respond, it means the message connected deeply. It shows that the words didn't just fill time, they filled space. The moment became bigger than just a debate or conversation. It turned into a shared experience where everyone watching, both in the studio and at home, understood that they were witnessing something different. The audience's shock didn't come from disrespect or discomfort. It came from recognition. They recognized honesty. They recognized courage. And most of all, they recognized someone saying something that needed to be said in a place where it mattered. What also made this reaction important was how fast it spread beyond the room. Within hours, clips from the show appeared online. People who hadn't seen it live were now reacting in the same way as the studio audience, surprised, impressed, and even inspired. That original reaction had given the moment its power. Without it, the comeback might have passed by as just another line in another debate. But with that reaction, it became a moment people remembered. In public speaking, audience feedback is a key part of measuring effectiveness. A strong speaker can feel the room and adjust their message in real time. In this case, the guest didn't need to adjust. The words were already exactly right. The audience's shock confirmed that. They had been caught off guard in the best way, by truth delivered without warning. And that is what gave the moment life. Even the host, who usually leads the energy of the room, had to pause. When an audience reacts strongly, it shifts the balance of control. That pause by the host, just a few seconds, let the reaction grow even more. Those seconds allowed the audience's response to speak louder than any words could. From an educational point of view, this kind of audience reaction is a valuable reminder of how real communication works. It's not just about what is said, but how people receive it. When a message causes people to sit up, gasp, or clap without thinking, it means something deep has been touched. The guest in that moment didn't aim for shock value. They simply spoke a truth that was too strong to ignore. And that kind of truth, when heard in the right setting, creates a ripple effect that goes far beyond one room. Audience reactions, like these, don't happen by accident. They are the result of words meeting the moment. They show how powerful it can be when someone speaks with confidence, clarity, and purpose, especially in a space where they are expected to stay quiet or stay small. Instead, they spoke up, and the audience spoke back. In the world of television, especially live political talk shows, every moment is captured and shared instantly. When something unusual or powerful happens, it spreads beyond the studio within minutes. That is exactly what happened after a single comeback during a heated exchange on air. It wasn't planned. It wasn't part of a larger campaign. It was one person speaking truth at the right time, and the world took notice. The show had started like many others, with questions, opinions, and back-and-forth discussion. But when The guest delivered a bold and thoughtful reply to a pointed remark. It didn't just stop the conversation, it started a movement online. The clip was short, just a few seconds of the full broadcast, but it contained everything people look for in a memorable moment: surprise, strength, and clarity. It was a moment that didn't require background knowledge to understand. Anyone watching could tell something important had happened. The reaction online proved it. People on social media started sharing the clip almost immediately. It appeared on news feeds, timelines, and video platforms. It was edited into short videos with captions. It was quoted in comment sections. It became part of the daily conversation. What made this moment stand out wasn't just the words themselves. It was the feeling behind them. The comeback didn't sound rehearsed or fake. It felt real. It sounded like something said by someone who had enough, someone who wasn't afraid to speak directly and clearly. That's why it worked. People don't always remember perfect answers, but they remember moments that feel honest. And this was one of those moments. As the clip spread, people reacted in many different ways. Some were impressed by the calm and firm delivery. Others focused on the message itself, agreeing with the way the point was made. There were discussions on forums, podcasts, and even in classrooms. Analysts talked about it on news shows. Commentators broke it down, explaining why the timing and delivery made it so effective. Some called it a viral moment. Others called it a masterclass in public speaking. No matter the label, the truth was clear. It had struck a nerve. In many ways, this response from the public gave the comeback a second life. It was no longer just something that happened on TV. It became part of a larger conversation about how people respond to pressure, how they speak truth to power, and how strong communication can change minds. People used the clip as an example of how to stay calm in tough situations. It became a teaching tool, not just for politics, but for public speaking, media training, and leadership. This kind of reaction doesn't happen often. Most political shows come and go without leaving much behind, but every now and then a moment cuts through the noise. This was one of those moments. It wasn't created by a team of writers or planned as part of a strategy. It came from real experience, real emotion, and real skill. That's why it mattered. And that's why people kept watching, sharing, and talking about it. Online communities often replayed the clip frame by frame, pointing out the expressions, the timing, and even the body language. Some focused on how quickly the guest responded. Others looked at how the host reacted in that moment of silence that followed. People asked, what made this so powerful? Why did it spread so fast? The answer was simple. It was the truth, spoken with confidence and control, at a time when people needed to hear it. This moment also reminded people of the power of live media. Unlike written statements or edited interviews, live TV shows everything as it happens. That means there's no filter, and that's also why moments like this feel so real. Nothing can be hidden or taken back. The viewers see it all, and that makes their reaction more honest and more intense. When someone delivers a message that cuts through, it sticks. It becomes part of the cultural memory. People also found inspiration in the clip. They saw what it looks like to speak up without shouting, to respond without fear, to take control without taking over. It became a model for how to stand your ground with grace. For students, teachers, activists, and everyday viewers, it showed that communication doesn't have to be aggressive to be strong. It just has to be real. The comeback may have lasted only seconds, but the impact lasted far longer. It lived on, through shares, quotes, and discussions. It reminded everyone watching that sometimes the most powerful moments are the ones no one expects, and that one strong voice, in the right moment, can echo across the world.